Why?
I think because of listening to all the arguments during the course of campaign, and also because I chair the Health Committee. A lot of people have been asking me whether the NHS will be better off or worse off if we remain or leave the EU, and I've really come to feel very strongly that we're better off staying within the EU. And I think the trigger, I think a lot of people perhaps watching this will have received their postal vote and found themselves actually staying their hand and thinking, really, what's it going to feel like on the 24th of June if I wake up and we've actually voted to leave? And I realised in my case that would not be a sense of freedom or liberation. It would actually be a sense that we'd lost something. So I think it was important to be honest about that decision and explain why.
You don't like that £350 million figure that has been touted by the Leave campaign, an extra £350 million weekly for the NHS.
Simply not true. That's the thing. And I've been telling Vote Leave this from the start. It's why I've not been really campaigning with them on platforms.
So when did you first say that was not true?
Right from the very beginning, I've said to them that they should describe it as a gross figure, that they shouldn't be implying that there'd be an extra 350 million a week, particularly to go to the NHS if we voted to leave, because it doesn't take account of the rebate and it doesn't take account of the money that flows back from Europe in the other direction. And as somebody who's campaigned ever since I arrived in Parliament for honesty about data in public life, I couldn't have handed out one of their leaflets or stepped on board a battle bus which had a knowingly misleading figure right at the heart of its campaign. And I think the public deserve better, frankly, from both sides.
So has that been a dishonest campaign?
Well, I think the trouble is that there's sometimes an attitude that the ends justify the means, and that somehow some people feel that it gets people talking about the figure, and it is a big figure even if you use the true net figure. But my view is that the public deserve better. The public deserve to hear an honest articulation of what the figures are, and
are
that's
the Remain
not been
camp
there.
any better, though? Because you're now plumping with that side.
No, I think both sides. As I say, when I've written about this for weeks, I think the public deserve better information, and that's been the greatest single call to me when I've been speaking to constituencies. They just feel they don't know who to believe, and they wanted to have honest, open data, and I don't think they've had enough of that, I'm afraid.
So how would you describe then this campaign, this vote that we're being told is the most important vote in a generation, and you're saying people are being told to make up their minds on the basis of flawed evidence on both sides?
Well, indeed, and on my website what I've done is I've put links to things like the House of Commons Library, BBC Fact Checker, Full Fact. Those are the sources where people can find balanced background information. And of course it's not just about information, it's a hearts and minds debate, this as well. And as I talk to people, people have a variety of different things that are pulling them, but as the campaign crystallises, it seems to me, into an argument about economy and immigration, I think the tone of some of the commentary around immigration has been very upsetting. And in fact, one thing that has really upset me is the number of my constituents who are from the EU who have been telling me how it feels to be on the receiving end of some of that commentary.
If you're
I think
saying
it's really upsetting.
It's effectively been a flawed debate then on that basis, what do we take from whatever the result is?
Exactly. Well, I think that the difficulty is that people wanted better quality information, and they should have had it right from the start. What politicians' job is to be honest about the data and clear about the data, but then also to respect the result. And I'd like to see politicians now coming together to promise they'll respect the result.
Politicians,
yeah,
it's their responsibility. You're a politician.
Yes.
At this late stage, you're coming out and sort of clearly putting this out there. Did you not have a duty to do this
I have
sooner?
been saying it for weeks. I've been writing about this for a long time.
But you didn't have this platform before because you didn't actively come out and say what you're saying now.
Actually, what do you think? There are many factors leading people to make this decision, and I think, like a lot of people, I do feel that the EU is an imperfect institution, that there were many things about the negotiation that really disappointed me. And there are important issues to do with sovereignty. But as the campaign has gone on and you listen to the weight of evidence, I have to ask myself, and particularly, as I say, as a doctor and someone who chairs the committee, is our health and our healthcare system and the NHS going to be better off or worse off if we leave, and I believe we'll be worse off outside the EU.
David has tweeted, we should respect all views even if they change at the 11th hour. Cameron has done it. Tweet from Fletch, glad she's gone. She's an MP and this move will get her kicked out at the next election. Gavin has tweeted, she was never for out. This has cabinet position promise written all over it. Planned damage control from Cameron. Have you been lobbied by the Remain side?
No, to be honest, absolutely not. I think that I explained my position to colleagues on both sides over the last couple of days, and certainly it's absolutely not true that I've been offered a post. I've neither sought a post nor been offered one, so I think that's completely untrue. I've spoken to people on both sides, I've listened to the views of my constituents, and of course, remember, I'm only one vote out of many, many millions. I think that the important...
But you're now a big prize for the Remain camp, aren't you? Would you campaign alongside David Cameron potentially?
I think once you make a decision, that it's right that you explain that. But I haven't, as I say, been taking a prominent role in campaigning for either of the camps, and because I think that what I'd like to see is much clearer evidence presented to people to help them make up their minds. And then the job of politicians, as I say, is to make sure that whatever the British people decide, we work together constructively to make that happen. That's our key role in this.
Have you spoken to David Cameron at all about this?
I have. I think as a courtesy, and I've spoken to Michael Gove. I've told my colleagues and my senior colleagues that I've decided to change my mind and why.
When did you speak to David Cameron?
I spoke to David Cameron on the day before yesterday to let him know that I was going to change, and I spoke to Michael Gove yesterday.
And what did they say to you?
Well, I think those are private conversations, and private conversations should be private. But certainly there's no question, and I'd be absolutely clear with me that I've neither sought nor been offered any post. That would be hugely disrespectful to people to have anything that could imply that. I think that actually being a select committee chair is one of the best jobs in politics.
Was David Cameron pleased though to hear from you?
Well, I think of course those who are campaigning, everyone campaigning for Remain is pleased if somebody joins them, and of course people are critical of politicians when they change their mind, but I'd ask a simple question that I think people are also fed up with politicians who are incapable of changing their minds and don't listen to the arguments.
But don't people have the right to expect their politicians, before we get to the end stages of a campaign, which is as important as this one, to have listened to all the facts, to have weighed them up much sooner, and to be able to trust everything that they hear from the politicians at every stage?
This is an immensely complex decision, and as I say, for me...
But if you couldn't make up your mind to this stage, what hope is there for anyone out there?
Well, I think, to be honest, I think a lot of people watching this will find that they're in the same position. Very, very many people have said to me, I've got my postal vote, I don't know which box to make my cross in, and a lot of people telling me that they'll be walking into the polling booth still uncertain about which way to go. And so my plea is that from both camps is that we have clear, honest data available to people to help them make up their mind.
Do you think they've got it now?
I'm afraid they don't from either of the official campaigns. So I would look at, say, at sites like the House of Commons Library, BBC Fact Checker, and Full Fact.
Voters to have to trawl that?
Absolutely, I agree with you, and this is what I've been saying for weeks. I hope they will, but ultimately there's.
But if they don't, you're saying people are making up their minds on false information.
I think that they deserve better from both official campaigns is the best way to put it.
But you're saying they're not getting it.
But there are other sites they can get it. But as I say, it's not just about the factual information, it's a hearts and minds decision, this, isn't it? It's a very difficult decision, and I think it's right that people take it very seriously, and many other people will have found that they started in one place, and then having listened to all the arguments, they find they're in a different position at the end of it. And I think that's what democracy is about, that we have a really important national debate. But one thing I would say is that if we do vote to Remain, what we have to do is reset our relationship with Brussels, because there's been a profound disconnect
once the vote's been had.
No, but what I would say is that in the way we connect with our European politicians, when I started this process, I used to go to public meetings and nobody could name a single MEP, certainly not their own local MEPs. They've never written to them.
Now is the question.
And I think people are now thinking about the EU, and I think what we need to do is start, if we Remain, engage with it.
Will other MPs do what you've done?
I'm sure there are other MPs
Have you
out there
spoken to
thinking,
any?
of course, but it's for them to make their decision.
How many?
And not for me to make it or say what that is. So, I think it's for them to think about it. But as
But
I
would
say,
you say you've spoken to many MPs who are now thinking that actually their public position doesn't reflect their private
I
position?
mean, there are still MPs I know who are going to actually publicly state their position in the next few days. But it's for
Changing
them.
it.
I think it's for them to actually make their points rather than for me to say it on their
It
behalf.
sounds stage managed when you
No,
put it
it's
like
not.
that.
No, it's not stage managed at all. In fact, I think that many of my colleagues were very surprised. And for me, I think another trigger for me is that my father's just had a triple bypass. He's 81. He started work and training as a mine clearance diver after the war while he was still a teenager. For him, the idea that we could have conflict in Europe isn't just an abstract concept. He was pleading with me all the way up to the operating theatre doors to change my mind. And I think a lot of us do take very seriously the views of our families and our colleagues. I mean, my entire team, both in London and in the constituency, are voting to remain. My son, who's a scientist, is voting to remain. All of these views and the views of your constituents, they build up over a campaign, and I think that if you're not prepared to sometimes say, actually, I'm in a different place now, then you shouldn't be doing the job, in my view, as a politician.